All right, it's finally that time of the day. It's finally that time of the month. The banned and restricted announcement. So we've been waiting for this for quite a while now, and this discussion is going to be mostly about historic, touch a little bit on like standard and alchemy, but it's mostly going to be on historic. So let's get started. We got two announcements here. Banned and restricted announcements, and we also got alchemy rebalancing for January 27th. So it looks like the changes aren't coming until the 27th. So let's take a look. Wow. Okay, so the first thing I see, standard, Alrund's Epiphany is banned. Wow, 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 wow. I mean, I'm not surprised that this card's banned. Since Immersion Ultimatum, this card has been played until now. It's healthy for the format that this card is finally gone, but it's kind of funny that they would ban it now, considering Kamigawa is, I don't know, like, isn't it like February 10th or something that it gets released on MTGA? So this ban announcement for standard is a curiosity in itself, but this is a good ban. Divide by 0. Okay, that's a surprise. Divide by 0? I mean, it's a way to nerf blue decks, but I mean, to be fair, Cat and Oven did get banned before for being really toxic and unfun to play against, so I mean, by that reasoning, maybe they banned Divide by 0 because of that. Next card, Faceless Haven. Considering Elrond's Epiphany and Divide by 0 got banned, which is basically control decks tools, that maybe that's why they banned Faceless Haven, to kind of offset that. But to be fair, standard has Hullbreaker now, so yeah, I don't know. Memory Lapse is banned from suspension. They should probably get rid of the suspension mechanic because it's kind of pointless. They're just literally holding wildcard hostage all this time, so. And are you kidding me? No freaking way. Teferi, Time Raveler has been rebalanced and unbanned. Wow, wow, wow. Okay, let's take a look at how it's changed. Teferi Time Raveler balance adjustments now legal in Historic. Cost 4 mana, white and a blue, and now has 5 starting loyalty from 4. Static ability becomes your opponent can't cast spells during your turn. I mean, it's still good. The thing about Teferi is, I mean, it was more busted before because before, it made instant speed cards into sorcery spells, so things like Phoenix decks got shut down. You also have Rakdos Arcanist decks shut down as well. This is a good change. It's still powerful. Your opponent can't cast spells during your turn. Yeah, I'm not sure. Would a control deck play this? Would a control deck play this? It's hard to say, but deck that would play this could be like something like Banned Blink. A Banned Blink would love this card. It doesn't let your spells get countered either because your opponent can't cast spells during your turn. And you can also use the -3 to draw a card and then bounce one of your units. So this is good. We're aiming to move Teferi Time Raveler away from the generically strong card to specialized anti-control tool. Now they say anti-control tool, but there's a good chance that all the blue-white decks are still going to be playing this. Increasing the mana cost will make Teferi less effective at controlling the board, and the new static won't incidentally stop cards like Finale of Promise and Dreadhorde Arcanist from working. So this is good. Now the important thing to note is that this is not a 3 mana anymore, so you can't Teferi Time Raveler, you know, bounce something, and then on turn 4 you have access to board wipe. So you can't also like on turn 3 +1 and then to a Wrath of God instant speed. So those are gone. So that's good. I think that's all the change for the historic only cards. So let's take a look at alchemy cards. So let's take a look at what alchemy rebalancing has for us. After closely monitoring our first round of alchemy rebalances, we're happy to report that they had minimal impact on historic win rates among existing decks. We also understand players' concern over future unknowns. Based on that feedback, we will be weighing the potential historic impact more heavily in our rebalance decisions, starting with the adjustments we are announcing today. Okay. it's good that they actually acknowledge this. And the Teferi change is actually pretty good. I really like that. We'll have to see what the rest of the Alchemy rebalanced cards look like, but yeah, this is a good change and good acknowledgement. So let's take a look at what Alchemy rebalanced cards look like. Acererak the Archlich. Rule adjustments. Removed opponent's option to sacrifice a creature on the attack trigger. Okay, truthfully, I have no idea what this card does. I've never seen it. I've never played with it. When it enters the battlefield, if you haven't completed the dungeon Tomb of Annihilation, return this card to its owner's hand, venture into the dungeon. When this attacks, for each opponent, you create 2/2 black zombie creature token until that player sacrifices a creature. So what does it look like now? Remove the opponent's option to sacrifice a creature. I mean, this card is still bad. This card is still bad. Okay, next. Assemble from the parts. Lowered overall cost now requires 2 black mana. Ability cost 3 from 4 mana cost. Okay, so the overall cost is 4 mana now. So similar to Unburial Rites, but this doesn't have to be in the graveyard. And the initial cost that you have to pay is 1 mana to target a creature. And then that creature gains the ability 3 mana, exile this card from the graveyard, shuffle it into your library, creature token, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. Okay. So if you get the assemble from the parts off on a creature, now your opponent actually can't counter the reanimation. And it only costs 3 mana after that. And not only that, once you revive it, it goes back into your deck, and then it would still have that ability, which is kind of scary. This card is actually quite insane. I think this will be played in reanimator decks. So it's 3 mana to revive. Can you do it on turn 3? So you'd have to let's say you have Faithless Looting on turn 1, or turn 2 you Faithless Looting and assemble the parts, and then on turn 3 you revive. The crazy thing is this is instant speed, so you can Faithless Looting, leave up a black mana, and then do it on their turn, depending on if they have like a graveyard hit or not. So this card is quite insane. Can you do it with Mending? Turn 1, you can't Mending. Turn 2, if you Mending, you can't revive this on turn 3. So okay, so the going Esper is out of the option. I think you have to go Mardu. So you have what? On Mardu, you have a Priest of the Fell Rites, you have Assemble the Parts, and you have Unbury Rites. I'm not sure if, okay, so I think you definitely play 4 copies of this, right? And then you play 4 copies of Priest. How many copies do you play of Unbury Rites? I think you play maybe 2. Yeah, this card is quite good. The only downside is if they do remove the creature, you can't actually revive it again even if you have a reanimator spell in your hand, because you'd have to draw it again. But I think this will see 100% play in reanimator decks. It's actually quite insane. Bloodrage Alpha. Increase toughness to 4 from a 3? I mean, all I read is a 4 mana 4/4. Okay, next. Cloister Gargoyle, lowered cost, increased toughness, is now a 0/3 from a 0/4, but it costs 2 mana. I don't know why they're trying to push dungeon mechanic. Like, we have the Acererak here, and then now we have Cloister. I see Dungeon Descent there. It's too slow. It's too slow. 2 mana 0/3. When you complete a dungeon, it becomes a 3/3. Flying. Is 2 mana 3/3 good? I don't think so, right? Dungeon Descent. Rule adjustments decreased cost. Cost 1 mana to activate instead of 4 mana. Okay, that's quite a big buff. Tap an untapped legendary creature you control. Venture into the dungeon. Activate only as a sorcery. Wait, you used to cost 4 before? You had to pay 4. This is a rare land for dungeon support. And you had to pay 4 before. I mean, the fact that Wizard of the Coast actually realized how terrible this card is at 4 mana cost is hilarious. So they realize this card is really, really bad. But I still think it's bad. So you'd have to have 2 mana, right? Because this card itself has to tap, and then you're tapping an untapped legendary. Yeah, it's still bad. Still bad. Ellywick Tumblestrum. Decrease activation cost. The alt cost from 7 to 6. So turn you play it, you +1, venture into the dungeon. So that's 1 turn. Turn 2, you do it again. And on turn 3, you minus. And what do you get? Creatures you control have trample and haste and get +2/+2 for each different named dungeons you've completed. Yeah, this card's bad. And I say that because if you're playing dungeon creatures, your deck is already bad. And then you play this. Yeah, this is just not gonna fly, right? Bates reversal, cost reduction to 1 black. This card's bad. Okay, next. Find the Path. Adds 2 mana of any one color instead of a green. It costs 3 mana to enchant a land. Venture into the dungeon. Still bad. Puppet Razor. Increase toughness from 3/3 to a 3/4. Beginning of the end step, you exile 1 target creature card from your graveyard. If you do, seek a creature card with mana value equal to the mana value of that card +1. It perpetually gains menace. Let's see, let me think here. It was 3 mana maybe. Out of 4 mana? Hey, don't we have a 3 mana exile card? It's a 3 mana 3/4 wolf, right? With the vigilance? Hold up, let me see. So you got a Cemetery Prowler that's 3 mana 3/4 vigilance that exiles a card from the graveyard. Now you got a 4 mana 3/4. At the end of the turn you exile 2. And it has to be a creature card. And it has to be from your graveyard. It's less flexible. But if you do, you seek a card. I guess this card could be pretty good in Alchemy deck, but I think in Historic it's a little bit too slow. I mean, it's too slow, right? In Historic, Precipitous drop. 2 mana enchantment, aura. Oh, it became a 2 mana from a 3 mana, but it's still only -2/-2. If this said -3/-3, or if it was a 1 mana with the -2/-2, this would see play, but I mean, why would you play this instead of a 1 mana -2/-2 enchantment? A Triumphant Adventurer. 2 mana 2/1, so it was 1/1 before. It has a Death Touch. As long as it's your turn, this gains first strike. Whenever it attacks, it ventures into the dungeon. Well. This card is quite the busted card, isn't it? It has relevant typing. It's a human. It's also a knight. You can play this in a knight deck or a human deck. And it's a 2/1 Death Touch with first strike, which is incredibly overpowered. What is this card? This card is so busted. So Mardu Knight with Ember Cleave, and they have one of the best lands for a tribal. The fact that this is a human, man. The fact that this is a human. This card is so good. That is so insane. Maybe this might actually boost the humans a bit. Yeah, looks good. Wow, okay, so for Alchemy, they didn't ban this, they just nerfed it. Only learns if it targets spell or permanent with mana value 4 or less. I mean, it's about the same. It's whatever. A Fearsome Whelp. Okay, so this is the card that everybody's complaining about. Let's see. 2 mana 1/1. Now it gains haste. Now triggers on the upkeep. It actually took the advice from Reddit. I cannot believe that. That's hilarious. It actually took the advice from Reddit. It triggers on upkeep, so now when you play the Whelp, even if you go second, you have a chance to respond to your opponent playing the Whelp. So now they don't get the cost reduction. If you are not a degenerate deck and you have some interaction in your deck, you can respond to the Whelp and kill it before they gain any cost reductions. So this is good. This is a good change. And the fact that it gains haste is, I think it's pretty relevant considering they did lose the fact that they did make it so that this is a little bit slower in case your opponent has removal. But to offset that, they made it so that this gains haste to make the deck a little bit faster. So this is good. I like the changes. Changing the trigger from the end step to upkeep will give decks an additional turn to profitably interact with Fearsome Whelp. This is a good change. I like this. Okay, Hullbreaker Horror got nerfed. So this is a card everybody's complaining about in Alchemy. Doesn't really matter for Historic. This card was too expensive to play in Historic anyways. Removed, this spell can't be countered, so this card isn't universally as good to just have it in your main deck. This is still good against creature decks, but against a blue deck, not so great. Inquisitor Captain, we saw this coming. If you cast it to the enter the battle effect, oh, Okay, that has some historic implications. So now you can't ephemerate this because you'd have to cast it. So this is going to nerf, this is a nerf to Soul Herder deck. Instead of playing Inquisitor Captain, which is a 4 mana, we'll just play the new Teferi. I don't think it's going to matter too much. It's going to lose that explosiveness, but in a more grindy version of the Blink deck. Losing the Inquisitor Captain won't matter as much because we'll just play Teferi. But now the Soul Herder doesn't work on this anymore. Same with Ephemerate, but although this is still a human, it'll still be played. I think it'll still be played in a human deck. Yeah, most likely, right? This is just it's just a good card still. It's still a good card. So it'll be played in humans. We're making it more difficult to overwhelm the board with Inquisitor Captain. The interaction cards such as Glasspool Mimic and Alchemy and Soul Herder in Historic make it too difficult for creature-based decks to attack advantageously without relying on flying or forcing themselves to ignore combat altogether. So this is actually very true. The Soul Herder actually killed the human deck. The Blink deck actually removed entirely of human decks from being played in Historic. So because once they get the Ephemerate going with Inquisitor Captain, how the human decks just can't push through. So this is good. I like this change. They nerfed the card. It's still playable. You're gonna still play in humans. It just won't be generically good that it goes in every single creature deck. In my opinion, I think this is a good change. Lier, Disciple of the Drowned. Added during your turn to the flashback ability. Oh, so this is a huge nerf. I don't think this card is actually playable anymore in the usual Alchemy deck because they play things like Fading Hope, Divide by Zero, that are all they all play instant speed spells, right? So to just play it during your turn instead of your opponent's turn, I think this card won't really see play. But the Historic version where you are trying to go off with the Chance for Glory, although I haven't seen the Chance for Glory deck in a while, but let's say you're still playing this deck, I don't think it'll matter as much because you still have to cast Chance for Glory during your turn. So in a deck like that, I don't think it matters too much. Sanguine Brushstroke. Remove life gain from sacrificing blood token triggers. Whoa, that is actually a huge nerf. This is actually a huge nerf in Alchemy. I don't think it's that big of a deal in Historic. The Historic decks don't really play this card aside from the Vampire deck that I've created. But in a deck like that, life gain really doesn't matter. It's relevant sometimes, but it's not big of a deal. But is it still playable? 100%. It's still gonna be. This card is still gonna be played in both Alchemy and Historic, I think. Alright, so Town-Razer Tyrant added non-basic as a target restriction. So that is whatever. This card is still insane. Do people still play basics other than the fact that they're like 1 or 2 of basics just to get around Field of Ruins? Let me just check. No basics here. Banned Blink. Almost no basics. This is a Yorion deck. Almost no basics here. Again, no basics, except for a copy of Plane and a Swamp. So really, what this is saying is that no changes were made. So overall, I like the fact that they've nerfed cards, but they're still playable. Personally, I would have liked if Divine Purge got nerfed, but overall, I think these are good changes. These are good changes. But anyways, guys, that's all for today. If you guys liked the video, tell me if you guys think some of the cards that they changed are unfair. Maybe you guys wanted some other cards to get buffed or nerfed. Tell me in the comments below. But that about wraps it up, and I'll see you all later. Bye-bye.